Hello everyone, Richard here, and today I'm really delighted to be able to talk to you about the BCN3D Technologies Sigma 3D printer. Okay, so very first thing, I'm wearing this shirt as a way to really get across the message that I'm supporting these guys and supporting the work that they're putting in and doing that. I don't work for BCN3D Technologies, I don't have any affiliation with them. I can say what I like about this 3D printer, and my opinions are completely my own. So I just wanted to make that very clear. Okay, so I was really lucky to be able to go out to see the guys from BCN3D Technologies over in Barcelona earlier on in this year. And that was great because the point of that, they were releasing and showing for the first time the Sigma 3D printer and a couple of other technologies that they've developed, DLP based technology, resin based printing, and some other technologies they're working on as well. So but for me it was all about the Sigma printer, understanding what they'd done with it and where it fitted in. So that was earlier on in the year. They've spent a lot of time working on that printer, working on approvals, regulations, setting up a production line. I went to see the factory over in Barcelona, and that was very impressive. Now, again, to really get the point across that these guys are not that well known globally. Over in Spain they are. They're really well respected and understood and known because they've been there from the start, from some of the early RepRap days. They started off in the Barcelona University over there, and the Fab Lab that they created to support 3D printing and other types of technologies. So they've had 3D printers, they've built 3D printers, they've designed 3D printers, and they've understood the processes involved in producing 3D printed parts. That's really important because they have gone through the learning curve and they've decided to build their own and design their own 3D printers, not based on other people's designs, but actually their own designs. They've brought in people from the community that are well respected. They've brought in some incredibly good designers from mechanical, electronics, electrical, and everything else you can imagine to design everything they need, and they've spent their time doing this to create the Sigma printer. So I went out there really to just see everything that they'd done, understand their journey, and see what their plan was for the future. It's taken a little while for them to get the machine into a state where they're actually starting manufacture now, and they're still taking pre-orders. They're still not quite shipping, but they are ready to go, and they'll be shipping hundreds if not thousands of these printers hopefully every week. So you want to see the printer, and the first thing I'm going to say is that when it's delivered it comes in a nice box, very well packaged, expanded polypropylene packaging, and I'll just show you the setup for the BCN3D Sigma 3D printer. Don't go away, it won't take very long, I promise. That's it. That's really it. You take it out of the box, you plug it in, you turn it on, you put in a couple of tubes, a few minor things to do, and really you're ready to go. That's it. That's your 3D printer already. None of the construction and the usual things you have to do with 3D printers. So for me that was a bit of a revelation because I've always had to build up 3D printers, design them myself, build them up from kits, and this was quite amazing that this whole 3D printer came ready assembled and made, ready to go. So this is it. So if we plug it in, I'll just turn it on very quickly, and it starts up. Before you know it, you're ready to go. So really with an SD card and some model files you can get on with printing almost straight away. You load some filament in, and it's a dual extruder system right from the start. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but basically it's ready to go. And you can use it almost immediately. They give you a nice kit of parts, so you get all the tools you need, little bag of tools, and a getting started manual, which basically just guides you through the installation of Cura, which is the slicer program that they've customized a little bit just to make the best out of the BCN3D Technologies Sigma printer. So they've customized Cura a little bit for that, and there's a whole load of profiles that are already set up, ready to go, and they were very useful. I've used those profiles and started experimenting with those. Of course, they encourage you to use your own profiles, but out of the box the experience is incredibly good. So once you've got set up, the first thing you sort of want to do is get a bit more familiar with the printer, and the nice thing is it's got a touchscreen user interface. So I've had this printer for a few weeks and I haven't actually plugged it in via the USB cable. I've been able to do everything I wanted to do through the touchscreen user interface and just using an SD card, which is really, again, quite refreshing. I haven't had to tweak the firmware or do anything to actually have it as a working printer. If we take a look at the LCD screen, we're faced with two options. We've got print and we've got utilities. We go into print, we can select up and down, and this is what's on the SD card here, and we go up and down, and when we choose what we want we just select it and it will start printing straight away. There's not a lot more to say about that. It takes all the information from the G code, starts heating up your two extruders in your heated bed. I'll stop this one just because I don't want it to knock what's on the platform. So that's pretty straightforward on the print. On the utilities side, we've got three options once again, so no real difficulties there. We've got temperature, so we can go into temperature and we can do a preheat, and the preheat nicely sets up the machine. So it gives you the two extruders in the heated bed, and you go there, press, and you start preheating. So that's great if you just want to get your machine set up just before you're about to print, get everything nice and warm. So we go back from that, we've got filament. We can load filament, we can unload filament, and we can tweak our purge settings. The purge settings allow you to heat up the nozzle and just push through a little bit more filament to purge out the nozzle or retract it back. So we won't be showing that one. The routine to do inserting filament is the extruder left or right. So once you select one of those, it basically gives you a few warnings. Make sure that there's no filament already in there, and then it will warm up the nozzle and allow you to push the filament all the way through. You basically just push the filament down in the back here of the machine, and it feeds it through into the extruder at the back and comes through Bowden tube to the hot end. So nothing really that difficult about that, very easy to do. And the last one is calibrate. Now calibrate is great. You can do bed calibration and you can do full calibration. Bed calibration just allows you to get your bed heated platform nice and level and flat. It's got little sensors, switches on the hot ends, the carriages that come along and test the distance of the bed, and tells you how to turn each one of the three screws, 3-point leveling system, to get the bed absolutely spot on. If you do a full calibration, it does all of that, and then it goes through an extrusion process, putting lines down onto the platform. And you as a user then have to look at the lines on the two different carriages and see which ones match up the best, select them on the LCD menu, and it's very, very straightforward. And then that lines everything up. At the moment I've got an E3D Premium Silver spool of PLA, which I'm using to print just a few small pieces here in dual colour, and on the right hand side I've actually got a Colour Fab glow fill, so that's the glow in the dark filament on that side, and they work very well together. I've tried lots of other manufacturers at the moment, and I've got plenty more to try as well. It is a 3mm 3D printer, so it uses 2.85 to 3mm feed stock, the filament that goes in here, and actually that's sort of becoming a little bit less popular. I guess more people are using 1.75mm filament, so it is only a few manufacturers. Well, I guess at the moment quite a lot of the manufacturers are still supporting 3mm, but there's certainly less than we were seeing a few years back. But there's still plenty out there that you can use, and obviously Colour Fab and people like that have been supporting all sorts of different materials and mixes and composites that you can run through this printer. The nozzles and hot ends are all fairly good. Worked absolutely faultlessly for me. No issues at all with them. extruder at the back. It's on a Bowden system, so that does sound like a bit of a limitation, but actually I've not found any problems at all. This whole machine performs incredibly strongly, incredibly fast. Travel speeds are 200, 250 millimeters a second. Print speeds, they've actually set the print speeds fairly low on most of the profiles, but you can get very high print speeds. I haven't actually found a top end yet. I'm still exploring and experimenting what the different speeds are for the different materials I've been using, but easily 50, 60, 80 millimeters a second, no problems, depending on the quality you want and the layer height. And again, beautiful layer heights. 0.1 is sort of a standard resolution nowadays, 0.1 millimeters. You can do 0.2 for speed, or you can go lower if you want to get really ultra high quality. The way the dual printing works with the two heads is really amazing. It works so well. It's been done before on RepRap 3D printers, so it's not particularly all that new, but implemented into a production machine, this is the first proper machine we've seen coming out that has dual independent carriages that can move backwards and forwards, park and print each different material at a time, and you just get hardly any stringing at all, hardly any colour mixing between the two, and really clean, crisp prints coming off again and again. So one of the other big things about this 3D printer, and the thing that attracted me the most to something that you just need the parts printed and you just want the end results, is that you can obviously fit a support material, soluble preferably, into one of the extruders and use that to print more complicated parts. So I've been experimenting, and over the years I've been using things like PLA, which is a polyvinyl alcohol, which can be dissolved in just normal water, so just any water, cold or warm. It does dissolve a little bit faster if you use warm water or hot water, and that works okay. So I was doing a few initial tests and just getting the settings right. So here's a dragon which has got some support. I cancelled him because the supports were pulling away and not connecting so nicely. So that led on to a few more iterations of experimenting with this dragon. It's quite a complicated print. It's difficult to print without support. Well, it's impossible to print without support material, and it's nice to be able to print it with a soluble support material that you can then not have to worry about. You just drop it in some water. Eventually I got to the point where actually it works quite well with PVA if you use a skirt around the outside as well. So you're using it as a barrier to stop any mixing of the two different materials, which you don't tend to get, but PVA itself is quite gloopy and quite stringy, and having the skin around the outside actually helps support the whole thing together. So the pillars and the skin just help create a bit of a protected environment for the head to be moving around and not knock things out of the way. And that he came out absolutely beautifully. I put him in just a normal water bath at about 40 degrees C, and an ultrasonic bath actually, which made him dissolve within a couple of minutes. It wasn't very long, it's probably about 4 minutes or so. So very quick to get that out. More recently I've been playing with some new support materials. This one is Scaffold by E3D, and this is very new. They've just launched this. It is a PVA, but it's a quite highly modified PVA. If we take a quick look at this one, PVA itself is very flexible. It's more like a rubber. This is much more like PVA or PET, or even sort of almost like ABS. It's a lot more stiffer, and it's got a bit more sort of give to it, and it doesn't flex quite as easily, but it is soluble and it works really well. So I've been printing some parts with this material, and it goes down very nicely. That's just the first layer, showing you the scaffolding support going down very nicely, and it's very good. It really does the job. So that combined, I mean, obviously you can print beautiful little objects like the Benchy and little Marvins, dual colour Marvins that we've got, all the usual parts, and you know, very nice pieces that we see a lot of people printing. But what was amazing for me was really to finally have a 3D printer that came ready to go, easy to set up, easy to calibrate, and you could do much more complicated prints with soluble support materials. So it's something I've experimented with, but this one is just ready to go. If you want to do that and you want to have good quality prints and offer services for people, maybe through places like 3D hubs. If you're running a 3D hub, there's no reason why you shouldn't be thinking about getting a printer like this to be able to print almost whatever you need to be able to print for people. I'm sure this printer is going to do very, very well when people start getting hold of it and using it for real hands-on 3D printing. So I'm very excited about the Sigma. I'm going to do a lot more 3D printing with it and really put it through its paces. Put all sorts of different filled materials in there and different things, and really just try and find out its weaknesses. I haven't found that many at the moment. I thought I'd be going back to the guys saying you should do this, you should do that, but actually it really does work very well. They've tuned the firmware so it works exceptionally. It is so easy to use, it's smooth, it's sleek, and the whole operation of the 3D printer is just a bit of a dream to use, really, compared to a lot of other 3D printers. It's incredibly good value for money. Believe me, it's one of the most well-made and well-designed, well-thought-out 3D printers on the desktop today. It really is a true 6th generation 3D printer, and I'm not just throwing numbers around that. I'm really trying to emphasize the point that this has got a lot of features that make it very easy to use for the user, and it's just been designed very well, so there is very little to go wrong. Obviously things break down, things need to be serviced, things need to be maintained, but this printer has been designed with some of the highest quality components. For the price point level you're getting, it really is good. So I can't really recommend it enough for a printer that you can get on with. Literally take out the box and start printing within 20 minutes. You'll be up and running, no problem at all. And then you can learn the software and you can learn the tools that you need to do and experiment with materials then, which is exactly what I'm doing now. So I hope that's been some use. I will be saying a lot more about the BCN3D Sigma 3D printer, a lot more about the materials, especially great materials like scaffold that are starting to look really, really interesting for this type of machine and will bring us to a new level of abilities for FDM based 3D printing. So I hope that was useful, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching.